programs in Tipp City. Whereas 2023 marks the 63rd Annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now therefore, I, Mike McFarland, Mayor of the City of Tipp City, do hereby proclaim the week of May 21st through the 27th, 2023 as National Public Works Week. I encourage all residents to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make in protecting our health, safety, and quality of life in Tipp City. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Tipp City, Ohio, to be affixed to this 15th day of May in the year of our Lord 2023. Mr. Mack.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing how I'm done, I will turn it back over to the Council President.
Thank you, Mayor McFarland. Thank you, Mr. Mack, and to all the Public Works employees. All the citizens of Tipp City appreciate it. Moving on to ordinances for second reading. We have an ordinance to amend the zoning code and the map attached thereto by changing the zoning of 30 German Street in lots 273, 274, 275, 868, and 869, Miami County parcels G15-003560, G15-003570, G15-003580, G15-011-340, and G15-011-350, plus or minus 0.7 acres, from two-family residential R2 to multifamily residential R3 zoning classification. This was introduced by Mr. Slagle. Mr. Eggleston?
Yes, I believe Mr. Spring will be able to elaborate on to this changes.
Good evening. This is a public hearing for an ordinance that would modify the zoning map. It would change the zoning on these contiguous parcels from R2 two-family residential to R3 multifamily residential. The proposed rezoning is in accordance with the Comprehensive Master Development Plan, and it was recommended to this board, or the council, by the planning board. If approved, the applicant has indicated that he would seek subsequent approval of a small multifamily residential dwelling. And as I mentioned earlier, it did receive a positive recommendation from planning board. So any modification from that recommendation would require a supermajority of council or 5 votes this evening. I'll be glad to address any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Spring. Mr. Slagle, do you still wish to sponsor this?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any council comments or questions for Mr. Spring? Hearing none. Mr. Spring, thank you. The public hearing is now open. Would anyone from the public like to speak about this ordinance? If so, what we'll do is have you step forward. We will need your name and address, please.
Theodore King III, 407 South 3rd Street. Along with my wife and son, I live at 407 South 3rd Street. The parcel of land under review right now is across the alley behind my property. I have lived on South 3rd Street for roughly 55 years. In 1989, my wife and I purchased the house from my grandmother, who with my grandfather bought the house in 1934. In 1947, they opened up Brown's Welding Service, which was in operation until his death in 1985. This was a welding and fab shop, and in the 1950s, he added a crane service to the business. He served on the board of trustees for the village of Tipp City and in multiple terms as a council member when the city became a village, or the village became a city. When my wife and I bought the property, we had the unique challenge of integrating a former business into the neighborhood. In other words, we made an investment in the neighborhood. At this time, the only plans that I have seen are for 3 triple structures with roughly 10,000 square feet of asphalt parking. The problem I have with that is that it's going to be 9 families on 3/4 of an acre. The block I live on consists of 12 houses on a little more than 2 acres. The daily traffic alone is going to destroy the alley and what is technically considered Elm Street, which is nothing more than an alley. Other traffic, that's just the cars and people living there. But what about UPS, Amazon, other such daily services? Is there plans to redo the alley, the street, put in utilities, whatnot? Will the new construction be considered a block like the rest of the neighborhood? If so, are there plans on putting fire hydrants on the southeast corner of the property? Through our town, there's a fire hydrant at the end of each block. Also, the city has anybody at the city talked with CSX about purchasing the railroad siding at the southern end of the property? That would be needed to make Elm Street into a street again. Also, what are the plans on making the alley, as I said, usable for traffic? Will there be added streetlights, storm, sanitary sewers? What upgrades are in the plans or budget for that? How much is the city willing to spend to make this happen? Will this come out of our taxes, or will you have to revise the street budget? Then there's the simple fact that he's wanting to build an apartment complex right in the middle of a 100-year-old neighborhood. All 12 houses on my block currently are privately owned and not rentals. So that means that 9 families that are going to be, for better lack of word, transitioned or transient. At best, they will live there 3 to 5 years and then move. What is the benefit for the neighborhood, the stability? What happens if he loses money and interest in the property and is sold to someone else? And in closing, 34 years ago, my wife and I made an investment in the neighborhood. We did not buy an investment property, we bought a home. Therefore, I'm 100% in disagreement on any apartment complex, whether it consists of 4 doubles or 3 triples being built. The zoning code says that anything up to and including triples can be built. So going for triples just shows lack of thought for the neighborhood and no imagination as to what could be built, just how much profit could be made out of such a small space. Thank you.
If you'd like to speak, please come forward, and then, no, she was standing first, so if we could just recognize that, and then we'll have you come up second, if that's okay. So if you'd like to come forward, we'll need your name and address, please.
Thank you, members of council. My name is Gail Gumbert. My address is 3509 Ascot Court in Kettering, and the reason that I'm here in Tipp City and the reason that I care about Tipp City is because I grew up here, graduated from school here, lived here for most of my life. I'm a 12-year veteran of the police department here. And I do applaud you very much for the commendations that you just handed out. I was here when the emergency services was just starting through Littlehampton and has come such a long way, but I was on the police department for 12 years. And also I am a part owner of the property here, and my family has lived here in Tipp City for well over 100 years. And that's why I care. Tipp City has such a unique flavor. People come here during the Mum Festival and through the car shows and just come on a Saturday evening. They don't come here to look at all these new houses that are being built on what used to be outside the Tipp City area, the new annexed part of Tipp City where all these new homes are being built. They come to look at the historic architecture. They come to see the downtown. That's the big draw. Just a few years ago, the Tipp City was on the cover of Ohio Magazine as one of the best small towns to live in Ohio. And we don't want to see that change. We aren't a city that needs to build apartments on every vacant land, every little lot that comes up. It's just not necessary. And Have any of you gone by this piece of property to see how small it is? Have any of you, you have, Mr. Enslin? Okay, what did you think?
I just want to say, at this point, we don't ask questions of council. It's not a dialogue. We
Okay.
welcome your
No
comments,
problem.
but if you do have
when
questions, well, let me just finish. If you do have questions, what we typically would do is have our city manager, Mr. Eggleston, answer specific questions, but that's at his discretion. So feel free to direct questions to him, and then we'll let him
Okay.
decide.
When I spoke before the planning board on April 11th, I asked all of them if any of them had gone by and actually visited the property to see how small it actually is. I mean, the alley is only 12 feet wide. People there like Mr. Keene, my brother, Mrs. Applegate, a lot of those people use that as their driveway to get to their garages or the sheds, whatever, back there. It's very small. My family used to use it as a garden plot. That's how small it is. It does have 100 feet of frontage on West German, but then it narrows down to a point at the south end where it runs into Elm Street. And it's just a very irregular shaped group of lots that does not have the resources to support several multi-story apartment buildings. And there are so many reasons why we don't want that in a neighborhood. We wouldn't want that anywhere in Tipp City. The increased traffic, the proximity to the railroad, it's so dangerous. And there are children that will be probably moving in these apartments. What are they supposed to do? Just go outside their window and play on the tracks? I mean, you should know how dangerous these tracks are. I can't tell you how many people have actually been killed or seriously maimed on those tracks over the years. Well, my family has lived here. There's also been derailments. And look at East Palestine. Have we not learned anything from the mess up there? What a disaster that is. German Street is very, very small, and there's a crossing right there where it meets 4th Street. 4th Street is only a one-way little narrow street from South Street to German. I don't know how you expect the railroad traffic to come across, cars that are trying to go across. And I don't know whether anybody from the developer or the city has been in contact with CSX about this possibility. But I can tell you that I have. I've been in contact with a gentleman who actually is the CSX Transportation Asset Management Property Management Specialist for not only this area of Ohio, but also Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Virginia. And we've been talking back and forth. I asked him, first of all, whether he'd ever been apprised of this, because in order for Mr. Mosher to get the land he needs, he's going to have to cut down about 137 trees on the west side of the property, and then dig into the railroad grade. And the gentleman that I have been speaking with said no, they have not been apprised of that, nor of the Elm Street possible purchase. And he's also looking into the fact that there could be a brownfield there, because when those railroad beds were built, there's toxic materials that were put inside there to raise the bed. I don't know whether you knew that or not, but that's how they do it. And that was many years ago, and he's doing the research for that now, and will get back to me. The other thing is that...
So, ma'am, I don't want to interrupt you, because of course we want to welcome everyone to speak at our meetings, but we do have quite a few people here tonight.
Okay,
So
I
maybe if
understand.
you could, summarize some of the other thoughts
Sure.
that you have.
And I just wanted to let people know that they need to stay in contact with council and be a part of what's going on in the city, not let things just drift by quickly. There's apartment condos that this gentleman has built at the corner of Broadway and 4th that are very jarring. They don't go with the neighborhood at all. That's an old historic neighborhood, and some of the houses have been there in the 1800s. And this condo place is big, square, blue. Just the residents that live there are very upset about that development. He doesn't even know, he can't even tell you what it's going to be. And that's another concern. He doesn't know what the plans are going to be. And like Mr. Keene said, we've heard anywhere from 3 to 9 multi-level story buildings as apartments. What we're asking for, we're not trying to stop people from making money here. Preserve an old neighborhood active. And if he wants to put a duplex or 2 duplexes on that piece of property that he bought, if they would be facing German Street where there's 100 feet of frontage, we have no problem with that. None of the neighbors there do. But we do have a problem with an apartment complex.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mosher, did you want to speak next?
Sure. Good evening, I'm Ben Mosher, 5246 South County Road, 25A, Tipp City. I'm here this evening to ask all of you for the approval of the zoning change of the parcels located on German Street. As many of you probably know, this property has been neglected for the past 20 years. As you can see in the pictures provided, that the entire rear portion of the home has been completely caved in, leaving it open to the elements, animals, and trespassers that completely vandalized and graffitied the entire inside of the home. What I'm proposing to do at this time is build one building that would consist of 3 attached homes along German Street. In the future, I may consider, if desired, looking at putting an additional building up, but at this time, I am looking at building just the one building. I want to mention that the preliminary concept plan that I provided, that is very preliminary as far as the future buildings. The only one that would be staying in place that shows is the one along German Street. Any of the ones in the back, there would be a lot of engineering work and so forth to see if those even could work. As far as there's a lot of calculations of draining, I would have to meet all the parking requirements and so forth. I would also be looking at the possibility of adding a main drive off German Street onto the property to not use the alley as a main entrance and exit to eliminate concerns of alley traffic. But as you guys know, that is a completely separate process that is discussed at a separate time, which is, goes under reviews, approval, and permitting, etc. Tonight we're just talking about the zoning. The property is currently made up of 5 two-family parcels, 4 of which them are buildable. So therefore, in theory, I could construct 4 two-family homes, which is essentially the same end result to what is being proposed now. My reasoning for seeking the rezoning is to group all the parcels into one piece and pre-plan a concept and a layout of the buildings that is much cleaner and a better use of the land. It would be easier and probably more cost-effective for me just to go ahead and build on the 4 parcels that I have there now. But I feel that this will make for a much more organized project, and in the long run will make for a nicer homes for the future residents of these homes, as well give a cleaner look for the surrounding neighborhood. I know that there are some and many neighbors that don't have a positive outlook on this project. That is their opinion, and I can respect that. I'm also aware that there was a letter that was posted around town that has a lot of misinformation on it. I can assure you this is not Section 8 housing. I can assure you that pretty much everything on the letter is completely false. What I can assure you is that I have everybody's best interest at mind and the community's best interest at mind. And what I can assure you is that I'm looking to build a nice quality project for the community. It may be hard for some to see now, but this truly is a positive addition to our community. This is something that will bring good quality homes to our community, which is in dire need of. As some may know, I'm a local Tipp City resident. I was born and raised here, and I still live here. And I continue to live here, and I care about this community very much. That's why I'm dedicated to continue to make it a better place. Over the past years, I have done a number of projects where I've taken dilapidated properties that were a complete nuisance and eyesore to the community and replaced them with a new quality dwelling. Some may know of the project that I did on the corner of 4th and Broadway, and apparently it's the opinion of some people that it doesn't look very nice, but I have a different opinion, and I've been told by many others as well that it does look nice. I take pride in my projects as they're a reflection of my work as well as an improvement to the community. Where most people would cut costs and maximize profit, I consider the overall look and value that the project can add to our town. There is no doubt that there is demand for housing here in our town. And where there's demand, there is growth. And whether some people like it or not, as long as people continue to seek to live here, there's going to be continued growth. And that being said, I would much rather see local hometown people do projects like this than big outside companies and corporations that don't care about our community. The fact that the comprehensive plan calls for this sort of use on these properties and it being a huge improvement to what was there, as well as a value added to our community that is in need of this type of housing, I respectfully ask all of you to approve this zoning change this evening. Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Sir, if you'd like to speak, please step forward. Again, we'll need your name and address, please.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. My name is Jeff Sakel, and I live at 5557 Proofmont Court in Tipp City. Change, to become different and altered. Change is a general transition of something or a phase to another state or condition. Change implies movement of an idealized state or a vision of what should be and movement away from present beliefs and attitudes. It is not always easy to accept change, but change is essential if you want to see progressive positive results. The challenge with change comes from our tendency to see change as a problem rather than opportunity for added value, learning, growth, and progress. Most people are afraid of changing their routines because they have either had a tough time adapting in the past or have witnessed the difficulties others have had. We are a society that looks for and needs the creation of new opportunities. Without change, survival is difficult. What causes change? Economic factors, access to resources, market demand, competition, inflation, interest rates, etc. Technology. The growth of technology always forces an organization to adapt. Politics. Policies that govern our local community, state, region, and country routinely change. What is the hardest thing to change? Yourself. Even harder than changing other people's mind is changing your own mind. When change happens, the familiar and traditional ways in which you operate are challenged. The questioning of your need for comfort, control, and safety kick in. The reason you operate the way you do is often perceived as a painful experience. It is the pain that you try to resist when you resist change. Whole community benefits from new home construction. Locally owned businesses do matter, and supporting local businesses create a more prosperous community. Mr. Mosier is a local business person, as he had stated, who is a native Tipp City citizen, born and raised in Tipp City, Ohio, and he has not strayed away from his home. He has a genuine concern for his fellow man and our community. Mr. Mosier is a hardworking, truthful, and honest person who tries to ascertain how he can increase the quality of life for our community. He demands a lot of himself and always produces positive results, as evidenced by the beautiful quality homes he has built and the renovation of other outstanding community properties. A great example is the positive economic impact of new home construction in our community. Both from a government standpoint and that of small businesses, the new home construction industry has gained the spotlight in terms of its contribution to the economy, causing a positive ripple effect throughout our community. The new home construction industry provides jobs, wages, taxes, and revenues stay within the community. The positive impact of new residential home construction is far-reaching, bringing benefits to families, businesses, and services throughout our community immediately, as well as for years to come. I realize Mr. Mosier's project is not to the scope of this example. However, it is worth noting and mentioning that according to the economists at the National Association of Home Builders, a one-year estimated local impact of building 100 single-family homes in a typical area includes $21.1 million in local income, $2.2 million in taxes and other local government revenue, job creation, and with a newly built home, families enjoy the benefits that include safety, amenities, energy efficiency, and floor plans to fit a modern lifestyle. What does that economic impact mean in the real day-to-day lives of community residents? Just take a moment to reflect about this. When a family moves to our community and buys a new house, they will likely shop at local stores to purchase goods and services. They will fill their car's tank at local gas stations so they can get to these stores, have local mechanics work on their vehicles, and frequent our local restaurants. The family may need to hire local companies for regular service to maintain their home. The children will enroll in our schools. This increases enrollment, which creates the need for more teachers and support services. The children will most likely participate in youth sports leagues and other activities, buy equipment, and pay registration fees. All of this economic activity generates income into the pocket of local business owners and their families, who in turn can spend money themselves, which recycles even more money into our community's economy. The new families also pay local and state taxes. These tax revenues assist in paying for a wide range of government services. The new home construction industry does not stop giving after the project has been completed. There will always be a need for support and maintenance. This equates to continuous community growth. But the advantages of new homes extend far beyond the buyers and the builders. Residential construction has a positive direct impact on the local community for years to come. In time, new income from both community and government will pave the way for more construction projects, more people in to support the community's local businesses, and increased growth for the general community economy.
Hi, Mr. Single, before you move to your next page, if
I got one paragraph.
maybe summarize it. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Being a homeowner only a few blocks away from Mr. Mosier's new residential home project will not only increase the property value of my home, but will also increase the property values of all homes in this immediate area. This project is a value-added resource and will have a very positive impact on our community. This welcome, positive new residential homes building project will make a substantial impact in the overall health of our community's economy and will be instrumental in revitalizing the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Please step forward, and then, so why don't we, this gentleman was standing, and then Sir will ask you to come forward next after he's done. And then just a reminder that we do have a lot of people here tonight, so if you could keep your comments, we appreciate those, but would like those to be concise in a way that you get your point across, but you're able to allow for other people to speak tonight. And so we'll need your name and address before you speak.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Brad Mills, and I live on 425 South 3rd Street. And my property is also adjacent to the alleyway and across where Mr. Moser proposes a entrance and exit of what his property is. I am fairly new. I'm actually the new one in the neighborhood of the block. I've only lived there 2 years. I moved here from out of state when I took a job here after losing my job in Georgia from COVID. Big move here. My wife is from the Philippines, a small town in Providence in the Philippines. Very quiet hometown feel. When we moved here to Tipp City, I had no idea what a mum was, let alone what a festival for a mum was. I didn't know what Tipp Canoe and I guess Tigger too. Tiger too. See, I still ain't got it right. But I know my neighbors, and my neighbors look out for me. I was working here a short period of time and realized it was quickly that the job I took wasn't going to be the real job I needed. I've now since taken a job in Indianapolis. They asked me, why don't you sell your house and move to Indianapolis? Couple reasons. About a year ago, I had a heart attack about 11 o'clock at night. I got to visit the fine folks of the EMS who came to my house. First person to show up at my door was a police officer who came, knocked on the door and said, "Sir, I just was in the area. I just wanted to see if there was anything I could do." The neighbors, my wife doesn't drive. They've rallied around her. They take care of her. They see her out on the porch with my 5-year-old daughter. That is my concern, my 5-year-old daughter. My house faces 3rd Street, and if you've ever been down 3rd Street, it can be very busy going from one end to the other end to get across the railroad tracks. Sometimes people adhere to the speed limit. Sometimes people go a little quicker than the speed limit. I have my little one play in the backyard, which is where that alleyway is. When I moved there, Rumpke Trash did the trash service here. They picked up the trash in the back alleyway. It's now switched to Republic. Republic does not go down that alleyway to pick up the trash. No matter what the people in the office there says they're supposed to be doing. They make us take our trash up to the front to pick it up. During the winter time, the snow plows don't go down the alleyway. So it doesn't get plowed on a regular basis like a normal street does. That alleyway is very narrow, and I don't think you can even get 2 cars to go down there at the same time on it. But my 5-year-old is what I'm worried about. I'm worried about with all of the poles and people's garages and everything else, her not being seen by a vehicle that's coming out or someone in a hurry going down that alleyway and very easily could hit her. That's my concern. I love this town. I've adopted this town. I drive to Indianapolis every day and back. I get up for work at 1:15 in the morning to be to work by 3:30 in the morning in Indianapolis. And then I drive home every day. I am gone more than I am home. This town is a town where I feel is safe, where you can go out and leave your door unlocked and not worried about coming home to find either half your house gone or somebody in it. I support the local businesses around here because that's the way I am. I believe in small businesses. I support the high school football teams and the rest of them, cheerleaders and everyone else, because I've had some of them babysit my little one. And so I go there and support the local kids. I don't have any kids in the high school, but I support the community. The Mum Festival, I support the firefighters, little bake-off. I had no idea what that was, but, 5 bags later, I found out.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mills. We appreciate your comments.
But this is what I want to feel. I worry about them. I worry about my wife, my little one. And that's what I had to say on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I see you have a prepared statement, which is good.
These are notes. This
Okay.
is not a script I'm going to be reading from, so
Okay.
don't worry. It's not a long
No,
document
again, we
here or
appreciate you
something
being
like
here, but just want to make
that.
time for everyone's
But thank you, President Huffman and council members. There's been
Sir, before you start, could we have your name
yes.
and address?
My name is James Gumbert. I live at 419 South 3rd Street, next to Mr. Mills there.
Okay, thank you.
First of all, I don't have any comments about Mr. Mosier. I have no problems with his construction methods or his taste in building or anything like that. That's not any kind of a problem. I actually wanted to answer some of the things that we've had some long discussions about progress and growth and things like that. And I mainly wanted to point out that, having lived here pretty much all my life, and in Ohio, even when I was going to college and things like that, I was out of town. But anyway, it looks to me like this, the push for the rezoning isn't what I would consider anything along the way of progress. We've have in this area developed a kind of pattern where the older established communities have their downtowns and their commercial real estate. Businesses tend to move to whatever the hot new shopping village is in the area. This goes back. I mean, the attitude of continuous growth and the need for growth, things like that, is the problem with that is it's thinking it's 20th century thinking. It's 50 years out of date. When I was in school, the population of Ohio was in 1970 it was 10,652,000, and now other states have gained. The United States as a whole. Florida's gone from 6,600,000 to 22 million. It's increased more than 3 times. Texas has gone from 11 million to 30 million. California's doubled basically from 20 million to 40 million. But Ohio has gone up from 10,700,000 to 11,700,000. That's 9%. We're not running out of housing and commercial real estate. We are overbuilt. We do not, this call for more and more. All we're doing in this area especially is is shifting around from one place to the nice shiny new place. You know, in 1967 it was Trotwood and the Salem Mall, and now that's a hole in the ground. 3 years later, it was the Dayton Mall, 1970. And, thousands of, all kinds of housing went in there. It was a great place. People loved to live next to the shopping. And Centerville at the time. I can remember when it was just a little town like Tipp City was, and I'm talking about like 5,000 people, which Tipp City was at the same time, and now it's heavy traffic and carjackings and drug busts and it's just change in a way I wouldn't have wanted this area to change. Let's see. I was just trying to be concise here.
We appreciate that. Do you have anything else
Yeah.
specific to this German Street rezoning?
Yes, I don't want to. I don't want to make Tipp City. Basically, I don't want to make it part of this. This outdated. Like I said, this is not current thinking. I don't want to make Tipp City part of this money-wasting, destructive process where you pull businesses and people out of one area and leave abandoned houses and shuttered businesses behind. Like I said, there's not, we are not gaining, we are not growing in any appreciable amount. We are stable. We are growing very slowly, which is actually very good. And it's, we're able to conserve what we have. And, thankfully, Tipp City has not made the kind of mistakes that other communities have, and including turning single-family neighborhoods and packing them with lots full of apartments and other high-density housing. It isn't only unnecessary, it's exactly the opposite of what you would do to improve a neighborhood. This isn't Manhattan in 1910 where we're trying to cram a bunch of new people and businesses in. Like I said, we're lucky that we've managed to avoid the worst of these mistakes, and I'd rather not start with one like this now. So
Thank you. We appreciate
that's
your
all I have.
comments.
Thank you.
Ma'am, if you could step forward, we'll need your name and address. Again, I tried to remind you to speak your identification signs. We appreciate that.
My name is Nancy Williams. I live at 620 3rd Street. I just wanted to share that I am one of those suckers for an old home who bought a 400 square foot, 102-year-old home and spent way more on it than it's worth. But I love it, and I love the neighborhood, and I love Tipp City, and I've been here for 6 years. I don't know everybody, but it is a quaint place. Coincidentally, the 2 homes and lot to the south of me were purchased by the Mosers right after I started renovating my home. And at that time, they proposed to tear down one of those homes and do some modifications, which I don't have a problem with. That did not go through, and there was some, frustration with that, and the comment was made that we'll put a renter next to you. Well, that happened. He's a great renter. He's a good guy. He's a wonderful neighbor. I gotta commend Ryan, he's been a gentleman when I've asked him questions. I also must say that the double that I see that they put up seems to be a lovely place to me. I also am a teacher, and I drive past the house that they tore down every single day, and I love that house, and I always wish somebody would grab it, but I know it would have been a money pit, and I don't blame them for tearing it down. It probably wasn't even salvageable. My thoughts are, though, I can't imagine that you can squish a bunch of homes into there, or apartments in this case. And my hopes for their development, and I hope that they would consider maybe building whatever fits in there safely, and instead selling it to families that are going to be stable and stay in our neighborhood. And, not that those reoccurring folks, although I must say, like I said, I have no problem with a renter if they're a good renter. And I'm blessed with the one that lives next to me. So if that happens, that happens. And I certainly don't blame them for wanting to, make a good investment. And I also think they've done a lot of good things that since I've been here, tearing down some old stuff. Like I said, I don't know if you guys have been there, but man, I just can't for the life of me figure out how they can squish that many apartments in there. So maybe something on a little different scale that could address their needs and the needs of the community as well. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. If we could have your name and
Ray
address, please.
Lincoln, 415 South 3rd Street.
Let me just make sure she got that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just said 415 property backs up to that alley. I'm just standing up to oppose the zoning change. Start off with and ask any one of you where you live if you'd like to have 9 new families moving real close to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Kester, 431 South 2nd Street, Tipp City. I've heard a lot of the stuff going on, and a lot of them there's some pretty good concerns, but I have a bigger concern, I think, toward council, and I brought this up once before on another thing, and that's spot zoning. Right now, this is an R2 area. You can go High Street east, A.O. Smith parking lot south, and I only know of 2 apartments in that area. One is on the corner of 3rd and Park Avenue, and the other one is on Broadway. It's a Paul D property. Everything else is single family with a couple single family homes converted to apartments. When you're changing your zoning from a 2 to R3, it's another what I consider a spot zoning, and I'm concerned that by doing this or considering it, you may be setting a precedent for other areas. So as you're making your decision, it's a long-term thing, and the bulk of that half of town are single-family residences. Some have been converted to multifamily homes, I know, but I'm more concerned about the spot zoning issue and the potential problems it could cause future councils in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. If you could come forward. And we'll need your name and address, please.
My name is Joyce Hartline. I'm from Thornburg Place at 614. And I grew up here. I just want to tell you, when I was a little girl, there were 2 drugstores downtown. There were 3 hardware stores downtown. There were more than restaurants than you can count. Now, what's happened to all that? Plus, now we have empty, along Main Street, we have empty storefronts. We have horrible driveways, horrible parking lots. I just want to know, Tipp was good at one time with what they had and they had 3 grocery stores in Tipp. 3. And what do we have now? That's all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Come forward, please.
Ben Mosier again. I'd just like to hit on a couple points that were made. I'll make it quick. First of all, I can hear everyone's concerns and definitely take them all into consideration. The main concern that I really can take, that is probably the only one I think that really has any weight to it, would be the traffic on the alley. I mean, I understand that it's might not be the best way to come in and out of this property. And again, that's why I mentioned earlier that that was just a very preliminary layout as far as any future buildings. I just want to reiterate again that 4 parcels, 4 two-family homes, it's going to be the same density either way if this passes or not. I'm just trying to make this a cleaner and more efficient project overall in the long run. I know that a lot of people don't want, this built behind them, and I understand that if that's, how they feel, but one way or the other, I'm going to build something there. I just would like to make it a little bit more organized, to make for nicer finished builds, to get them a little bit further away from the tracks and just make it a little bit cleaner. As far as cramming a number of units into a space, again, that's something that's looked at another time. There's requirements that I have to meet, square footages per dwelling, parking space, green space, drainage, all that stuff is something that would be taken into consideration when further buildings are built. It's almost 3/4 an acre. That's a pretty big lot for downtown. If you drive by it, it may look kind of small right now because it's 2/3 covered with, there is some trees, but it's mostly all honeysuckle and brush. So when you put it on paper, it actually does scale out to show a little bit bigger. So again, I appreciate all your guys' time this evening and listen to what I have to provide, and thank you.
Thank you. Now, you can come forward if you'd like, ma'am. We try not to have people come up repeated times, but there are times that happens. So if you could just be concise, we appreciate that. Yeah, I understand that.
Again, my name is Gail Ann Gumbert, and I just wanted to refute one of the things that he said earlier. This is the flyer that we passed out to as many residents in the area as possible. It also includes an overlay from a drone photo onto the original plat map of this piece of properties that Mr. Mosier has purchased. Mr. Mosier said something about there was a lot of erroneous information in it, but we made very sure that there wasn't any erroneous information. There's no mention of Section 8. I'm somebody that supports affordable housing for people, but this is not the area where it should be. And I'd just like to know if I could the other gentleman that came up that listed all the statistics about how great construction is and things like that, the one thing he kept referring to was that this was residential homes. It's rentals, and that's a huge difference. Makes a huge difference to the existing property values, makes a huge difference. Those people do not pay property taxes. There's no place for them to shop unless they want to go to Menards Deli and order their Christmas ham or whatever. There's no grocery store. But if at all possible, could I give this to someone and you can
If you'd
all
like
take
to
a
approach,
look
I'll
at it?
take it and we can pass it
Wonderful.
on, guys.
And that's all that I wanted
Okay.
to say.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So maybe what we can do is just pass that down. Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak? Please come forward. again your name and address, please.
Bill Russ, 316 South 30. I wasn't even going to say anything tonight, but I work at the Needy Basket a couple days a week, right here on top of that railroad track. Nobody's mentioned this in this entire meeting. How are these people going to live with that railroad track right up against their backs, blasting 15, 16, 17 times a day? It's just a matter of time for any quality person is going to move out of there, and it won't be long before the owner of that property is going to say, I got to go Section 8, because this is the only way I can get my rental, and that'll be the end of that. I think it's a terrible place to I deliver food on 4th Street. Only people there are people that can't afford to live. And I think we're making a big mistake for the city of Tipp if we go ahead and do that. Thank you.
I don't see anyone else standing to speak, so the public hearing is now closed. Are there any council comments?
I would like to say that thank you all for coming out tonight and having your voices heard. Mr. Mosier has been a pillar of this community when it comes to building houses here. Take a look, just look at the residential house on Main Street that he's building. I mean, he does nothing but good things for Tipp City. So when he says this isn't going to be Section 8 housing, when he says that he's going to build it in a way that is safe, I'm going to put some weight into that. Because he has a reputation here that I believe council should take into consideration. If this was somebody that we had no idea how they were going to build, I might think otherwise. But at this time, I'm going to put some weight in Mr. Mosier's comments. I did drive past it, and it does look small because there's a bunch of shrubs and other things. It looks like a dilapidated property. And if he's willing to invest and make that neighborhood look a little bit better because he wants to put housing in there, again, I'm going to take his reputation into consideration. And I would ask that the rest of council do so also.
Thank you, Mr. Liddy. Would anyone else like to speak?
I've driven past there. I went past when they were tearing down what was left on that lot. And the proximity to the railroad. And right now it's between 25 and 30 trains a day in a 24-hour period. And if we allow something like this to go in, the phone's going to ring off the hook with complaints about train noise. The people that already live down there know it's there, put up with it, they're in single-family housing. To me, agreeing with Mr. Kessler, this is spot zoning, and I can't see putting multi-units that close to the railroad with the reputations the railroads are having. Safety factor. I will be voting against this tonight. Thank you.
Mayor McFarland and I don't always agree, but I'm going to have to agree with Mayor McFarland.
Oh my God.
I know there's been a lot of clapping tonight, but if we could hold your applause, it would be more appropriate for this meeting to allow council to speak, and then we'll vote, and that's our process for each issue that we have before us. Would any other council members like to speak?
I think Mr. Mosier does a wonderful job on this projects. I lived in the apartments down on 3rd Street for 5 years during the down payment in Tipp. I lived up in Sydney next to the railroad. I think Mr. Mosier will do a good job.
Do you still live next to the railroad?
Are there any other council comments? And I would like to say also, thank you for being here. We appreciate people taking part in our meetings because it's important to us as council members to hear from everyone, because certainly our decisions are made as a body of 7, but we each bring one vote to this. And so it does help us to weigh both sides of issues. I think that knowing and understanding our process is important. I appreciate the comments from your own personal experiences. I know Mr. Kessler brings some insight to this also, having served on council. I know zoning changes are always difficult because there are a lot of people that have opinions as to what they want to see happen with Tipp City. As an elected official, I take that into consideration with each vote, but I also have to weigh it against the things that we're required to consider. And there are certain things under Ohio law and under our own charter that require us to weigh certain factors in every decision. And for that reason, in the decision making and the weighing of those factors, I support this. I think that this is a change that is a good use of the parcel, and so I'll be voting yes. Are there any other council comments before we take a vote? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Mr. Slagle?
Yes.
Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
Mr. Enslin?
Yes.
Ms. Pittenger?
No.
Mayor McFarland?
No.
President Huffman?
Yes.
Mr. Liddy?
Yes.
Ordinance 1223.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on, we have an ordinance amending sections 51.15 to 51.30 of the Tipp City Code of Ordinances pertaining to water rates and regulations. This was introduced by Mr. Liddy. Mr. Eggleston? If you want to wait a minute for people to leave, it might make sense. Mr. Eggleston, do you want to go forward?
Yes, the discussion with council work session, council decided to remove the multiplier and raise the rates by 1% of shortfall water, and staff has made those adjustments with the ordinance itself. So we're asking that council approve the public hearing and approve the ordinance as written. Mr. Green can answer any questions and anything beyond that.
Thank you, Mr. Eggleston. Mr. Liddy, do you wish to sponsor?
Yes.
Are there any council comments or questions for Mr. Green? I think we've gone over this quite a bit. We've had a few study sessions. I know that Mr. Green had explained this previously to council members, so I appreciate that. I don't have any questions for you tonight, Mr. Green, but I appreciate the information you've given to us. Hearing no council comments, the public hearing is now open. Would anyone from the public like to speak? Hearing no one, the public hearing is closed. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Mr. Liddy?
Yes.
Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
President Huffman?
Yes.
Mr. Enslin?
Yes.
Mr. Slagle?
Yes.
Ms. Pittenger?
Yes.
And Mayor McFarland?
Yes.
Ordinance 1323.
Next, we have an ordinance amending sections 52.02 to 52.08 of the Tipp City Code of Ordinances pertaining to sewer rates and regulations. This was introduced by Mr. Schwab. Mr. Eggleston?
Yes, again, this is taking the multiplier out and going to the charge. It coincides with the water bills, and we're asking council again to approve the ordinances written in multiple work sessions on this on the public hearing as council adopted.
Council comments. Again, I just wanted to say that I appreciate Mr. Green having explained this previously, and for staff as a whole. I know Mr. Eggleston had helped to find a resolution to an issue that was brought to their attention. So for that reason, I support this. Any other council comments? Hearing none, the public hearing is now open. Are there any comments from the public? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Mr. Schwab,
Yes.
Mr. Liddy,
Yes.
President Huffman,
Yes.
Ms. Pittenger,
Yes.
Mr. Slagle,
Yes.
Mr. Ensland,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes.
Ordinance 1423.
Thank you. Moving on to resolutions. We have a resolution approving the construction agreement for the Fieldstone Place Planned Residential Development Subdivision Phase 4. Mr. Eggleston?
Yes, Mr. Spring is ready to give a brief overview and answer any questions the council may have.
Thank you. Yes, this resolution does approve the construction and subdividers agreement for Fieldstone Place Phase 4. The phase is about 4.6 acres in area, and it'll have room for 12 new single-family homes. The phase is located on Millstone Drive, and it'll also create Cobblestone Corner Drive. Essentially, it'll have identical facade treatment to the existing homes there in Fieldstone Place. The developer has provided a plat diagram, a set of construction drawings that have been approved by staff, the required surety, payment of fees, and also the payment or the provision of the insurance that's required by code. Staff would request council approve this resolution, which will allow the city manager to enter into this agreement. I'd be glad to address any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Spring. Would someone like to sponsor this resolution?
I'll sponsor.
A second?
I'll second.
Any council comments?
This is just like what we did for phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Any other comments? Hearing none, the public hearing is open. Would anyone like to speak to this? Seeing no one, the public hearing is now closed. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Mayor McFarland,
Yes.
Ms. Pittenger,
Yes.
Mr. Slagle,
Yes.
President Huffman,
Yes.
Mr. Ensland,
Yes.
Mr. Schwab,
Yes.
and Mr. Liddy.
Yes.
Resolution 2023.
Next, we have a resolution approving a loan from the City of Tipp City, Ohio to the Community Improvement Corporation of Tipp City, Ohio to be used for the purpose of economic development to include but not limited to the development and redevelopment of property, purchasing property, equipment, facilities, improvements, buildings, and structures within the corporate limits. Mr. Eggleston.
Yes, recall our last work session, we discussed, initially we were going to limit the funding that could be transferred to $500,000. Council's request, we basically remove that requirement and put in that the council may, as needed, transfer funds to the Community Improvement Corporation of Tipp City when requested by this Community Improvement Corporation. So it gives council that discretion that if they do decide to go beyond $500,000 or whatever that case may be, then each time the CIC would come back, council can then evaluate that request and decide whether they want to transfer any funding. So we're asking that the resolution be adopted as written.
Thank you, Mr. Eggleston. Would someone like to sponsor this?
I'll sponsor it.
A second?
I'll second.
Are there any council comments?
I think this is a great step forward to improving the uptown area and developing the city in a way that is cohesive and allows that agency to move quickly when it needs to.
Thank you, Mr. Liddy. Are there any other council comments? Okay. Hearing none, the public hearing is open. Would anyone like to speak on this resolution? See no one, the public hearing is closed. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Mr. Schwab.
Yes.
Mr. Liddy.
Yes.
Mr. Slagle.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes.
Mr. Enslin.
Yes.
Ms. Pittenger.
Yes.
And President Hoffman.
Yes.
Resolution 2123.
Next, we have a resolution transferring $100,000 from the City of Tipp City, Ohio to the Community Improvement Corporation of Tipp City, Ohio to be used for professional services to hire a firm to develop a plan for the developing and/or redeveloping the uptown area as shown in Exhibit A. Mr. Eggleston?
Yes, again, this would be the first step. Council, I believe, unless someone wants to correct me, that we agreed upon the map for the redevelopment area that is attached, that the council would look at as far as having the firm come up with a plan. Our understanding is it could be between 80 and 100,000 for that plan. The CIC would interview planner developers to get that plan moving forward, and this money would be transferred so the CIC can move forward with that project. Again, this resolution will be similar to other resolutions down the road to expend funds. So again, we're asking council to approve the resolution as written to start moving forward with that project.
Thank you, Mr. Eggleston. Would someone like to sponsor this?
I'll sponsor it.
A second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Are there any council comments? Hearing none, the public hearing is now open. Would someone like to speak to this resolution? Hearing no one, the public hearing is now closed. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Mr. Enslin.
Yes.
Ms. Pittenger.
Yes.
Mr. Schwab.
Yes.
President Huffman.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes.
Mr. Slagle.
Yes.
And Mr. Liddy.
Yes.
Resolution 2223.
Next, we have a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with O.R. Colon of Cincinnati, Ohio for right-of-way acquisition services for the industrial sewer project at a cost of $60,360. Mr. Eggleston.
Yes, this is for the project to get the sewer line moved down 571 to Abbott. Again, due to the federal funds, we do have to follow a process, which O.R. Cole has done for the city before, especially the 25A project. So we're asking the council to approve this resolution so we can keep moving forward with that project. So again, we ask to approve the resolution.
Is there a sponsor for this?
I'll sponsor it.
A second?
Second.
Any council comments? I did have a question for you, Mr. Eggleston. Is this for 6 parcels for that?
Yes.
For the $60,000? And then do they typically charge per parcel? Is this the rate that we've paid in the past per parcel?
Mr. Matt.
I know, I'm looking at Mr. Mack talking to you, but it's Mr. Mack if you'd like to do that. I guess my question was whether, I know we've used them before, have we in any way bid this or compared this to other charges for the same services?
We have compared this to similar other
projects and other vendors. We have a comfort level with OR Poland. We've used them 6 or 7 times, and the rates seem to be about the same across these acquisition companies. This cost, so there's a fee associated with each part of the work they do, which includes appraisals, title searches, all the way through negotiating with the property owners and the closings for the properties. All of that is included in this price.
Okay. That was what I had. Are there any other council comments? Okay, thank you, Mr. Mack. The public hearing is now open. Would anyone like to speak to this? Hearing no one, the public hearing is now closed. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Mr. Slagle?
Yes.
Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
Ms. Pittenger?
Yes.
Mr. Liddy?
Yes.
Mr. Ensland?
Yes.
Mayor McFarland?
Yes.
And President Huffman.
Yes.
Resolution 2323.
Next, we have ordinances for first reading. This is an ordinance approving the final plan plat for the Fieldstone Place subdivision, Phase 4, 15 lots, plus or minus 4.650 acres. Mr. Eggleston.
Mr. Spring's chomping at the bit to go.
So this is the first reading of an ordinance that will actually approve the formalized plat that will create the lots for the Fieldstone Place Phase 4 that we discussed earlier. The resolution approves the subdividers agreement, allows the city manager to enter into that agreement with the developer, and then this ordinance actually creates the individual home lots that can be sold. So it includes 12 individual single-family lots and then 3 essentially green space type lots that are nearby for a total of 15 lots. And again, this is just the first reading. Normally ask questions at the second reading or the public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Spring. Is there a sponsor for this? Okay, thank you, Mayor McFarland. Moving on to motions, we have a motion setting June 10th, 2023 as a public hearing date for the rezoning of Miami County parcel G15-019132, located proximate to North Hyatt Street, directly east of the Windridge Apartments. Mr. Eggleston?
Yes, the next 3 motions to help speed things up. As for North Hyatt, there's a property behind Windridge. There's 2 to the side. One is the corner of
Were you done speaking?
Shall I continue?
No, actually, I will correct that because our attorney had pointed out that he believed that I said June 10th, which should have been June 19th, so that was my mistake. So I'd like to correct that. So
Please do.
this is a motion for June 19th, 2023.
So the next 3 motions are the property owner of all 3 parcels asking to rezone. Set a date for public hearing to rezone these parcels. So we're asking the council go ahead and approve all 3 motions and set that into place so that at that meeting on June 19th we can hold a public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eggleston. Can I have a motion to approve this motion?
What zoning are they going for?
Let's spit it out.
So
R3.
Yeah, there's the 54-acre tract. They would like to switch it from light industrial to single-family residential R1C. The 3 adjoining parcels that are directly abutting North Hyatt, it's about 5.8 acres. They'd like to switch the zoning on that from office service to R1C single-family residential. And then the property essentially at the northeast corner of Park and Hyatt, directly adjacent to the Tipp City Post Office, we'd like to have that zoning changed from office service to R3 multifamily residential.
That lot has a problem with it. They're aware of that problem, the gas lines. One thing Mr. Blair does is his homework. So
motion to approve setting the public hearing. This is motion 7A.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any council comments? Hearing none, are there any public comments? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Mr. Slagle?
Yes.
Mr. Liddy?
Yes.
Ms. Pittenger?
Yes.
President Huffman?
Yes.
Mayor McFarland?
Yes.
Mr. Enslin?
Yes.
And Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Motion carries. Moving on to a motion setting June 19, 2023 as the public hearing date for the rezoning of Miami County parcel G15 090020, G15 090040, and G15 092900, located on the east side of North Hyatt Street, directly north of the Tipp City Seniors and directly south of the Windridge Apartments. Mr. Eggleston, do you have anything in addition to what your other comments?
No, Madam President.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve this setting the public hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any council comments? Hearing none, the public hearing is now open. Does anyone have anything to say related to this motion? Seeing no one, the public hearing is now closed. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
Mr. Enslin?
Yes.
Mr. Liddy?
Yes.
President Huffman?
Yes.
Ms. Pittenger?
Yes.
Mr. Slagle?
Yes.
And Mayor McFarland?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion carries. Moving on to a motion setting June 19, 2023 as the public hearing date for the rezoning of Miami County parcel G15 021307, located at the northeast corner of Hyatt Street and Park Avenue,